we can help people who have joined today, as well as answer a lot of questions which are in our minds about how to successfully navigate this very important and sensitive topic. So I would like to start with a poll question, and if you could all, I'll request you all to just take a minute and answer the poll question. Could I please request everybody to just share their answers? It will help us for the benefit of everyone else to see the results. Okay, I think we can end the poll. And Navya, would you please share the results? Okay, so low utilization and employee acceptability seem to be the top concerns. Sustainability is also coming up, and then very interestingly, we ran this poll previously also with HR. Today we are doing this with C-level, and budget was never an issue, Prabhash. So
that's good news for you, right?
That's good news for us. Yes, absolutely. So I think there's a comment in the chat. Okay, yeah. All right. So thank you everybody for sharing this. So Prabhash, I would like to start with you. Isn't the CEO's primary dilemma whether to accept the fact that organizations contribute to mental health disharmony, and hence mitigation process isn't really a best practice, but just a hazard mitigation?
You have put me on the spot. But first of all, thank you for having me here. It's a pleasure always. I genuinely believe that it is an organizational responsibility and a global need to look at employee well-being in total. And mental well-being is one part of it, but I have always looked at it holistically across multiple dimensions, including starting with financial well-being, because half of the mental health issues today seem to be financial in nature in the corporate context. See, Archana, I believe genuinely that 70% of an individual's time goes either preparing for work or being at work or coming back from work. So life, to that extent, 70% constitutes work. And hence this entire question of work-life balance that we keep talking about does not really exist, because there is a question of work-life integration. Work constantly encroaches on your life, and occasionally your life encroaches on your work. And hence, I believe that a lot of decisions that we take as founders, as business owners, as CEOs, if not directly, quite often indirectly contributes to wellness concerns. Right? You work long hours, your physical wellness will suffer. Of course, your mental wellness as well. You don't feel that you have got your due from the organization, late promotion, inadequate salary. You'll still again come across that entire stress of managing your EMIs, managing your work life, convincing your family that you are doing the right thing. Yeah. So that's why I genuinely believe, it's my firm belief that organizations actually contribute actively to mental well-being disharmony. not always deliberately, but our decision-making process and our 24/7 work life, both of this actually add to this harmonious relationship between what we do and how our brain adopts and copes with it. And I'm sure Jayashree can add to it from clinical evidence. But fundamentally, I believe that CEOs are actually, it should be top of mind for CEOs' agenda. To be looking at mental well-being as integral to their business success. There are evidence to suggest that we are losing almost $200 billion annually globally on and around issues of well-being. So even commercially, it's a viable proposition for them to look at it. But I believe that is the bare minimum that we can do. Nothing special that we are doing because we are actually contributing to the problem, and it's high time we contributed to the solution.
Okay.
That's my thought around it.
Wonderful, wonderful. Jayashree, do you have anything to add to this?
You know, I completely agree. I think it's, I mean, one thing that I mean, even though as a clinical psychologist, I want to highlight that considering the amount of time that we all spend at work, organizations play a critical role, not only in just helping people with mental health related issues, but promoting mental well-being. And I think that's the, you know, slight reframing in terms of the way that we look at the role is really important, because just because of the amount of time that we spend at work. So I completely agree with you, Prabhash.
Okay, great,
And
great.
if I may just add,
Sure.
So we have just walked out of the industrial revolution and come into this knowledge revolution, right?
Right.
The industrial revolution, one of the bigger issues that cropped up when we started doing things at scale was safety, right? So physical well-being became a very important aspect of an organization's successful transition from unsafe work environment to safe work environment. This was the reality of the 19th and the 20th century. Now, the 21st century is all about interconnectedness, global organization, 24/7 ways of working. And hence, one of the biggest safety concern is emotional well-being. Now, unfortunately, there is no question of a safety officer for emotional well-being, right? We haven't come to that as yet. And I'm actually surprised and a little bit sorry that it takes legislation for organizations to step up, you know. At some point in time, sub-government will legislate on this and say you need to have a safety officer for mental well-being. But why can't we proactively look at this and put it as part of our agenda? I think that's one question that I'm going to have for all CXOs who might be there on the call.
Great. Agree. And I think, you know, we have had this discussion many times working, you know, in various discussion forums, which we have been speaking to people. And one of the things which is really coming to the forefront is that, you know, having what you have shared, that we need to have a mental health framework and policy at an organization level, which can help organizations look at this more like any other policy program implementation, and rather than safeguarding various aspects and interests, as well as looking at the long-term objectives of these programs. So I would like to bring in Jayashree. Jayashree, you are a clinical expert. So from your perspective, these mental health frameworks and policies which we recommend that organizations should have, and I think many mature organizations do have that. What in your view are the salient features, or what should be the primary constituents of this kind of a policy?
Yeah, no, I think it's really important that all organizations actively think about their employees' mental health and well-being. And in fact, I just want to mention a policy framework that the World Health Organization and International Labour Organization came out with about last year. And that actually really beautifully outlines the kind of framework that organizations can adopt. And what they highlighted really three aspects, very holistically: prevention, protection and promotion of mental health and well-being, and supporting people with mental health related issues, and overall mental well-being of people at work. And I think we all kind of experience different stresses and, issues related to our mental well-being. It applies to everyone. But this framework really highlights the role, the important role that an organization can play in creating an environment to actually support well-being of individuals. And when we talk about, and they talk about prevention and the prevention of psychosocial risks. And like you were mentioning, Prabhash, there's the importance of, if we have financial challenges, that's obviously something which is going to contribute to our mental well-being. But that is one very important, but just one aspect of mental well-being. There are other aspects, and one of these, which I think often gets ignored, is just how stimulating the work environment can be. And so there are frameworks and things that organizations can do at a higher systemic level to help their employees and promote well-being of each individual. It's not just about helping people who have a mental health condition remain in the workforce and negate taking care of issues which around, say, harassment or discrimination and increasing diversity. That's one side of the one aspect. The other aspect is really just promoting the well-being of all individuals. So I think both these aspects, it's across the spectrum, and that's the way that organizations need to start thinking about it. And the most important thing is to really proactively have mental well-being as part of the management framework and your systems, and not as an add-on. And I think that's where the change is going to come.
Prabhash, would you like to come in from wearing an HR hat?
So
I'm sure there are many other dilemmas, from a HR perspective.
So, as you know, Archana, my company is called Flipcarbon Integrated Solutions, right? And one of the reasons I call it integrated solutions is because I was very, very scared of the disintegrated manner in which we tend to implement solutions, right? And hence I said that at least I will not be a participant to that process, right? And that's how this company was born. And in fact, even before venturing into wellness as an initiative for us, we did some research, some meta-analysis, we looked at secondary data, and we came up with a 6C framework inspired by Carbon. So 6C again, where we are looking at 6 different dimensions of wellness, right? Starting from what Jesse just said, that do I have career wellness, right? That's the starting point. If I don't have career wellness, it is going to some way impact every other aspects of my wellness. Second, do I have culture wellness in my organization, right? And in that process, capital became one important. So we said we need to have career wellness, we need to have culture wellness, we need to have capital wellness in the organization, and we need to have community wellness. Can I get along with the teams that I work with? Or are we being pitted against each other on the bell curve and say that, look, unless you fight it out with each other, you can't grow, right? And then the contribution that I make to the organization, to the community I work with, to my own family, is there contribution wellness? And if all of these are working, then at the end of it is what I call the core wellness, right? I'm emotionally healthy, I'm satisfied, engaged, happy. My mental state is working out well, and I have the capacity for physical wellness as well. No? So physical and mental well-being is core, but the other 5 C's are the important contributors to that. And that's why I said, look, if you're talking about wellness, you need to incorporate the managers in that. An employee assistance program by itself is a necessary condition, but not a sufficient condition for wellness, right? Because the manager contributes to the issue, and the employee seeks counseling. How is it going to work? Right. So we need to have this integrated framework in place. So this is the Flipcarbon integrated framework, 6 C's, which is how we hope to go to market with this entire issue and say that, look, if you want to talk to us on this issue, let's talk in an integrated manner.
Right.
Archana, can we from the audience put across questions?
Yes, please. Would you please introduce yourself and?
Yeah, my name is Hari Krishna.
Okay.
And I've been in the corporate field for quite some time, but right now I'm a farmer living in a remote village in Tamil Nadu.
Okay.
Right. I would like to respond to what Prabhash has said and also look at it from a slightly different perspective. One of your questions was, is the CEO, should he or she attach importance to this mental health issue, right? And then we looked at it from the contributing factors that the organization occupies 70% of our mental bandwidth, and therefore it either aids mental health or destroys mental health, and therefore the company should take ownership and start participating in this.
Right.
Let's look at it from a CEO perspective. What does a CEO want, or what are the critical aspects of a CEO? She or he would be visualizing for the company in the next 10 years horizon, right? What's my company, what's the path my company needs to take? So visualize the unforeseen and then strategize for that, and then build a structure and staff the structure. So from a pure capability point of view, she or he wants capable people who can deliver that vision. Mental health is a critical aspect of that capability. So rather than position this as a responsibility of the company to the citizens of the organization or to the society, we should in fact position it stating that if you want capable people to drive it, then this is an important aspect which very often is very latent, and therefore it has to be addressed in a particular manner. So in that manner, what happens is we start talking the language that the CEO wants to hear, and it's no longer a service that he or she is doing to the society or to the organization, but something that is going to aid in the realization of her or his vision for the organization. That's point one. Point two, employee accessibility. A lot of what Prabhash was speaking pertain to, if I may give a very simplistic equation, it's like the Maslow's need hierarchy, right? There are a set of needs that I as an employee have. And if the organization in each of those different facets is meeting my aspiration, then there's a state of wellness. And where there is a hiatus, then that wellness erodes or enhances, right? So that is one element of it. And I would call it more, a need satisfaction aspect. But the way my own experience of initiating something like this in a different region, where we had a psychologist who was positioned to look at, where the psychologist was accessible to people in order to share with the psychologist their mental health issues. What was critical was that the employee wanted that to be a very safe zone, a zone which has no access to the CEO or HR, right? Unless the employee who's accessing that zone wants it to be shared, there was an omerta that, look, there is no question of sharing what the psychologist is listening or hearing. Absolutely. Right from that individual. So I would slightly differentiate the mental health issue from the organizational behavioral issues, right? While it contributes, there is also an element where the employee, because of the social stigma that is surrounded with that, wants it to be a very, very safe zone. And therefore, creating it without integrating in the organization sometimes actually pays dividend as far as this particular function goes.
Archana, can I pitch in here?
Jayashree can respond on that. Sorry.
No, thank you.
Archana, can I pitch in here?
Yeah, may I know who is speaking?
Yeah, this is Rakesh Sharma.
Yeah, hi Rakesh. Yeah.
Hi, I was hearing all the perspectives. No, I'll just pitch in a very different way of looking at things in the way what we have experienced. And one is that when we talk about heart attacks, why does India become the capital of heart attacks. Then we talk about suddenly we have some hypertension cases and the country becomes the capital of hypertension cases. And now we're talking about wellness, and in no time we again are leading the world. So now we are a whole collection of companies, small companies, large companies, businesses, farmers, everybody. And the people who are visiting the hospitals are from all walks of life.
Mhm.
So why is it a corporate problem? Number one. Number two, what I realized in my understanding of people, having worked with, I do a lot of startups, so I nearly shut down in my current startup. But you know what I realized during this process at COVID? None of these guys left. I had no money, and the business was not there because of COVID. I was realizing now they would all leave. None of them left. Then I was thinking, what have I done right? They must be really fighting inside with their families, fully stressed. But what did I do right that they didn't leave? Coming back that, okay, the technology has bounced back and we are getting back on track and in good situation. But what I realized is at the end of the day, we ourselves are very careless about us. And during those times, you know what I did? I stopped all meetings from 5:30 to 6 p.m. on Fridays. Just 5:30 to 6 p.m. 30 minutes. I follow Ananda in my spiritual and I do meditation. I said, okay, guys, all of us, no meetings, no customers, all of us were forced a CEO's instruction to spend 30 minutes in that. And we got them to do some breathing exercises. We got them to focus and meditate for just 30 minutes. And I insisted. It was something like an insistence. And I would call up even their families that get this guy to attend. 3 months we did. Uske baad, people did not answer. Some were lazy, but I just messaged them, okay, please join, please join. फिर मैंने बंद कर दिया. तो 1-1.5 महीने के बाद somebody called me in the morning meeting and said, Rakesh, why did you stop that? I said, what happened? You know what? Then I said, okay, I heard you. Then I had 3-4 people also raise their hand. Kya, why did you stop? Can you restart? Then I asked them what happened. He said, you know what? I used to behave better in the house on the weekend. And I felt fresher on a Monday morning. That means that after all the hectic 5 days that we had, we actually introduced that man de-stress to the family so that his family moments were equally good. The wife found him to be responsive, not angry because he had some bad work done or his CEO scolded him, which he took with him into the weekend. But he actually enjoyed with his kids or family and rested, had adequate sleep. I slept better. And Monday they looked fresh. Then I realized, what did I do? Did I form a policy? Did I form a corporate jurisdiction where we have to make a communicate so that we can share this? All I did was just to take away and let them look at themselves. And then they said, sir, mera na pulse rates have improved. Somebody said, you know, it has forced me to start walking. Unknowingly, I suggested this to Tata, who's one of my largest clients, and they ended up doing a wellness app with me. And then what I introduced here was fitness, nutrition, and wellness integrated in one, connected their watches. But the point was that people don't share their personal situation. So as CEOs, what I realized was send them back to their families in a better state of mind. So that if there is Saturday, Sunday to rest in an IT organization, they maximize those benefits with the family. So I have a whole set now. After doing that app, I've become a veteran of well-being. You know, we literally, and now they're launching it to all the employees of Tata Steel, almost 1.5 lakh. But I never thought that I would actually reach this point. But it has all been a test and trial method, hands-on, on the ground, that I realized that we don't need any corporate jargons to do it, and try to keep it a very simple concept of trying to keep because what they do at home I can't control. And family cannot control what he does in the office. Whether he does a bad job or a good job, they can't control. Now, this how to marry this together is to create that buffer zone for this guy. I think that is the thought process I would like to bring in from all the perspectives that I heard, whether we are farmers or technologists or businessmen or small SME owners or a thelawala. All of us are queuing up in the hospitals with all these kind of diseases. So we cannot say it's a corporate problem.
Okay, great. Thank you for sharing that. Yes, Prabhash.
So if I was to distill what Hari said and what Rakesh said, so first, if I distill what Rakesh said, if I take away everything else around that, what remains is that the CEO took charge, right? And that's precisely today's conversation about, right? And when it comes to Hari's point and this entire confidentiality around mental well-being, data security, all of that, while everything is relevant, it's actually a renaissance and a transition that is happening. At one point in time, you did not want to share your physical wellness details with anyone, right? And then it became kind of mandatory in organizations to do a physical wellness report, share it with HR, and everybody has no problem with it anymore, right? As long as you don't have evidence of discrimination. Similarly, at one point in time, there was a sexual orientation confidentiality, right? Before we said that you need to come out of the closet and celebrate, right? So I think mental health is also needs to also transition in that direction. That look, if you can call up somebody in office and say, "I'm not coming to work because I have a runny nose," it is equally pertinent and fair to call up somebody in office and say, "I do not want to come to office because my depression is playing up." Why should these two be different issues, right? And both can be cured by counseling, can be cured by medicines. Both have cures in this medical profession, and both are diseases. So I think it's our own mental renaissance that we are going through as organizations and as a society, and we will have to transition this to be able to say that, look, this entire question about transparency versus confidentiality is because somebody is going to treat you badly if it was to come out, right? And the question is, why should you treat somebody badly because something like this came out? So those are my thought processes on those two gentlemen putting their thoughts here. Jashi, over to you.
You know, I think it's, I think one thing that I'd just like to add is that definitely the importance of integrating mental well-being into the workplace isn't just a corporate challenge, but definitely, I think the fact that there are structures which exist that allow a key decision maker to actually take the bull by the horns and implement it is a great place to start. Because we have all, I mean, you can lead by example. I think there are several visionary CEOs, you know, here today who would probably join because they're already doing this. And I think if this could spread further, then this would have a ripple effect into society. As a clinical psychologist, we work often with individuals, and you know, we see the kind of challenges that people face, the dilemmas that they have around: should I disclose my mental health issues in my organization or not? You know, they struggle with managing their mental health conditions and the work that they have. It's really up to that key decision maker to say, no, I'm going to actually implement a change in the way that I work, and say that it's okay for somebody to, you know, come out with the fact that they have a mental health issue, to just say that I can't contribute to the maximum potential that I was doing earlier because of this issue. I need some time to deal with this. And it's for that key decision maker to really take that decision and say, you know, kind of bring in that element of cultural change within the organization. So yes, definitely. I mean, I think you know, we're discussing the kind of dilemmas that CEOs go through, but it's really important for CEOs to take that stand, and as you're rightly saying, it impacts everybody. It's about it's not just about helping people with mental health illnesses or issues kind of work better, but it's also about just creating an environment so that everybody can work more effectively and more efficiently. And that's exactly the kind of change that we need in organizations to have this ripple effect in society as well. Otherwise, we're going to land up, as the world's capital with all these mental health issues and things. So we need to preempt that proactively.
Archana, you're on
Sorry,
mute.
Archana.
Yeah, no,
Archana,
definitely agree with you.
yeah, this is Manish. I
Yeah,
had
Manish,
put a
just give
question
me-
for you in the chat box, but nevertheless, I'll
Yes,
discuss it here.
sure, sure.
In my experience, I still feel that mental health is still a taboo subject, and employees don't feel comfortable discussing this issue either with the peers or managers. They don't know how it will be constituted or how it will be dealt with. So, in my experience, it has worked to an extent when we had provided very independent, confidential employee assistance programs
Mhm.
and taken help of professionals and provided support. Otherwise, just left to the managers or a supervisor or a business unit, uh, that was not a great situation or great experience.
Mhm.
So, number of things that how do I educate people more?
Mhm.
Mental health issue, irrespective of financial well-being or any other well-being, can happen with anyone. It's like you get other kind of illnesses. You have hypertension, you have uh, uh, any other ailment. So similarly, you can have something like a mental health issue as well. Doesn't matter. Even young school-going students are having mental health issues these days. Niti Aayog, in fact, is a newspaper ET today that they are building a committee and getting help from all kind of stakeholders. So
Mhm.
similarly, in the organization, how do I create more awareness about it?
Mhm.
How do I create more openness about it? That people feel okay to talk about. They don't feel the career, their job is at stake, and there is professional help available. These are the three stuff I think if we can do, it will help in building the right kind of framework for the organization. Just very limited experience, but I thought I should share this with you.
Well, thank you, Manish. Thank you for sharing this. And I'm sorry I couldn't bring you in earlier. But yeah, I meant to say, I think 2 points which I would like to conclude on this particular question. One is, it's not just about mental illness, it's about mental wellness. And like Jayashree said, it's how you look at the whole issue proactively. Are you sending your employees home on a Friday, happy and charged to look after their family on the weekend? I think great point. And the whole aspect of the framework, which is prevention, protection, and promotion. Awareness. So where do you start? When I have spoken to a lot of C-level members, a lot of them have hesitation. How do I start this? How do I soft pedal this? Will my managers accept it? We have a top down hierarchy. I cannot talk to my team directly. I need to first have my managers buy in. And I think these are some of the framework can help in addressing these questions. So I'll switch. I'll come to the next question, and everybody, please feel free to drop in your points in the chat, and we'll surely try to take them up, one by one. Uh, so Prabhash, is it really a CEO's responsibility to drive the initiative, or is it an HR's responsibility? How do you see the two roles playing the?
Okay, so I think CEO sponsorship is important. Not so much responsibility, but sponsorship, because I believe something which the CEO sponsors tends to get done and delivered in the organization.
Mhm.
Obviously, the CEO will always have 7 or 8 CXOs who will drive one of their agendas.
Right.
And this agenda tends to fall under the HR domain. It can also equally fall under the safety, health, and environment domain, right?
Or training.
Right. So my point is this, that when legislation comes in, we tend to make it CEO's agenda, right? If you have an accident in your factory and somebody dies, the occupier can go to jail, and hence the occupier is very mindful of that no such accident happens, right? But if you announce a large layoff without being mindful of mental well-being and a couple of people commit suicide, nobody goes to jail. So it's very, very important to look at it from a larger perspective, that look, human life, irrespective of why it was lost, is equally important, right? And hence we need to be mindful of how to prevent something like that from happening. And therefore the sponsorship definitely needs to be from the top, because what happens when the sponsorship is not from the top, we start either fad surfing, flavor of the season, or not really being impactful in our implementation. You start the employee assistance program, 15 calls come through the year, nobody cares, right? Because there was no associated well-being training to drive people to take those calls. So that's why the CEO sponsorship is important, but CEO doesn't need to do everything himself or herself, simply because the larger the organization, the bigger the problem is likely to be, and the equally you will have enough hands on the ground to implement it. But should the CHRO implement? I honestly don't know, because perhaps the issue is large enough to create a separate stakeholder for this.
Chief Psychology Officer.
Yeah, just one point here. Sorry to interject. This is Rakesh again. See, the basic thing is that, I'll tell you one example. So we signed up an agreement with a consultant in California. So I was supposed to meet him. We just signed an agreement, and I reached the other week, and I contacted him, and the phone was untraceable. And when I actually found out, when I went to his house, I found that he had passed away. It was such a very big shocker. And then the family told me that he has been down mentally, which has impacted his health, and ultimately the body couldn't sustain. Now, this is just about in a week's time. The biggest worry that he was already working with an organization, and the organization did not know for the last 2 years that he actually had this problem. Now, we as even people are very uncomfortable that it's going, as long as they live, even if it's till the last day, it should not impact their career and their growth. It should not stem. अरे उसकी तो तबीयत अब खराब हो रही है, उसको थोड़ा सा ना ये रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी मत दो, उसको थोड़ा सेकेंडरी बना दो, एक नया बंदा लाते हैं. We have this tendency in an organization. So the consciousness has to change for all these programs to be a success. That is why people don't communicate. They just don't want. So that was my course of action or meditation, was that I don't ask any of you what you guys are doing and what is your status of mind. I will give you my perspective. Please follow this. Now that nobody has to say that I'm ill, I had a fight with my wife, I'm having problem, financial problem, etc. But by doing this, I found that people actually thought that I'm actually taking care of them, and they were sold to my vision. So I took care of them, and they got attached to the vision despite the financial issues that we had. So the conviction has to be that, okay, Mr. Raman, whatever you have, don't worry, your work every day will be considered in the same perspective versus when you were unwell or versus you are well. I think that is the biggest, I would say, a blocker or a threshold for us to cross mentally at CXO levels.
Absolutely, absolutely. And yeah, and I also would like to add to this, Prabhash, that like you said, if it is, sometimes if it's only a CHRO's job, then it should not become all about optics and managing your KRAs. And, if it is, and this is something we also heard in our first conversation with CHROs, that if it is driven and supported by a CEO or CEO, then it's the message just goes down much more, positively, and people relate to it. It's not just another HR initiative. Like some people were telling me, please don't ask our employees now to do this also. They will run away. So that is not the purpose of institutionalizing mental well-being programs. It is supposed to be something you would do just like you would take your medicines every day. You would want to probably track your sleep and mood and things like that. So
yeah, in fact, Archana, like I started in the beginning, I believe that you should have a wellness program because you contribute to the lack of wellness, right?
yes.
I think we need to first acknowledge that like I said, 70% of your time is in the organization. The industrial structures have changed, but we haven't changed. I'll give you a perspective. At some point in time, some organizations decided that they were multi-shift operations and they need to create multiple shifts, right? And that is how the 3-shift operations were born. Otherwise, people were stretching themselves to 16 hours prior to that. Now, in the knowledge space, the same thing is happening. People are working across diverse geographies and they are working across shifts. So you start your day at 8 o'clock, you finish your day at 11 o'clock in the night. Now, this requires a change of work stream. This requires a complete change in the way we work, right? For example, it needs to be a lot more trust-based system so that you can do a lot less review meetings. So now all of these are not happening fast enough in organizations. So you will start your day at 8 o'clock because you started with A country shift. You will end your day at 11 in the night because you are ending with a B country shift. But in the worker in the factory is not working like that. He is being asked to end his shift and then somebody else takes over, right? So this entire change of work stream, which is not happening despite the world having changed substantially in the last 15 years, is something that we need to think about as CEOs, right? And bring in change around that. So when I say mental well-being or emotional well-being or wellness as a whole, you're not doing it because somebody is walking in with issues. You are doing it because you are creating issues. Right? You are not creating issues because you are a bad organization. You are creating issues because the ways of working have changed, right? That's one. Number two, I think there is an entire masculine ways in which we still operate organizations, right? Which means you will not ask for help. You will not question uh, things which are going wrong. You are not going to be talking about the fact that you are working pretty long hours, which you shouldn't be. Right? So we have made organizations behave in this macho manner where it is okay to stretch yourself. It is okay to really strain your health, have inadequate sleep, because that is the way to celebrate yourself. And at the end of it, you also get an award at the end of the year, right? So this mindset shift cannot be driven by anybody other than the CEO, right? And that's where the question comes, why it should be the CEO's agenda and the CEO's dilemma. Because one aspect of CEO's dilemma is profitability, because as soon as you try to change certain things, your profitability will definitely dip. When you would have moved from 1-shift, 2-shift operation to 3-shift operation, profitability would have dipped, right? And then you'd have caught up again because productivity really went up. Your factory utilization really went up. Call centers are already doing it. They use the same computer between 3 different people in 3 different shifts, right? So that mindset shift of how do I change my work stream is, I think, actually at the core of it. Everything else is peripheral.
Yes. And that's actually my next question. Like the one of the dilemmas is really about, how do you do the tightrope between promoting well-being and achieving your business goals? Are you going to be perceived as somebody who's a soft manager or a soft organization? Or these conflicts can happen, and especially I think with Gen Z, we are conditioned to working those 8 to the last shift at 11 p.m. But I know that the newer people entering the workforce are not looking at that kind of work life, and their expectations are very different. And then hence the CEOs, I think they are more challenged in terms of ensuring well-being, and while also in walking the tightrope for achieving the business goals. So would you like to share your views, Jayashree and Prabhash, on this?
Jesse, over to you first.
No, I think Prabhash, please go ahead.
So, Archana, I think I was lucky to work with 3 organizations which either completed 100 years or are on the verge of completing 100 years. right? Sam Miller was 127 years old when I left it. I started my career with ACC Cement, which is very close to completing 100 years. And in the interim between those two, I was with Arvind, which is also very close to completing 100 years. Both of them were 1930s product. So I tell organizations and the boards, and here the agenda moves from the CEO to the board, that if you are running a 100-year organization, right, you will get things right. Now, unfortunately, CEO terms are really small, except in family businesses. So what happens there is that CEOs are driven by the short-term agenda, typically extending into 2 to 3 years. And in 2 to 3 years, you cannot strike a balance between profitability and doing the right thing. No, it's not possible. Doing the right thing is actually profitable. There's enough research to suggest that productivity improves if people are healthier and happier. But that improvement will not start showing up on your P&L in a 3-year horizon. It's unlikely, right? But in a 30-year horizon, will it? Yes, it will. So I think a really long-term horizon for certain aspects of your vision is important for an organization to do the right thing. There's a particular reason why the Tata Group is also one of the torch bearers of some of the best employee practices, right? Because the Tatas have run it for a really long time. So what has happened is that you have had that safety around the CEO's KRS, right? The CEO also needs safety. He's also a human being. So the safety around the CEO's KRA needs to be enforced by the board for the CEO to do the right thing. Otherwise, the CEO is going to be driven by what the shareholder wants and what pushes the stock price high. Thankfully, consumers are getting smarter, and consumers are demanding more accountability from organizations on a lot of things. And that has started reflecting in, for example, now you have mutual funds which are ESG-driven mutual fund, organizations having sustainability goals. I think mental health should be part of the sustainability goals. Wellness should be part of the sustainability goals. And then you'll see magic happening.
Which it is actually. Jayashree, you want to comment on the sustainability SDGs?
No, I mean, absolutely. I completely agree with you. I mean, mental health should really be viewed as a sustainability goal. I mean, if we view it from a, just a safety, protection practice, then we get into a very, how do we deal with the problem mode rather than, how do we, prevent, how do we create an environment which is enabling? And I think that's really where where that change has to come in. I mean, one of the things that I completely agree with you is that when you're saying we haven't adapted in terms of our work culture with the speed of change in technology, that's very important, and that's something which key decision makers in the organization, whoever they may be, need to be very cognizant of. And that's why mental wellness has to become part of the actual organizational practices, and it cannot be something which is just an add-on program. Because you were mentioning trust-based, developing a culture of trust. That's something that's you see that in organizations like you were mentioning, which have 100-year-old history. They are organizations of trust. They already have that sort of a culture and environment. So it's easier for people to take decisions around mental well-being there. But that's fundamental, building that sort of an environment and a culture of trust in the employee, looking at it from an employee-centric perspective is also very important in smaller organizations as well at the outset, and then incorporating this into the actual organizational culture and framework.
Right.
I just have one point here.
Sure.
So see, the large organizations are less than 15% of the cumulative economy, 85% are these small organizations. So we don't need a lot of board decisions to actually inculcate, or what you rightly said, Jayashree, about the adaptive nature of the organization. And I think it's very easy at the CXO level to create that adaptive culture, because you know what is happening between our recruitments that happened 10 years ago versus the recruitment that has happened 1 to 2 years ago. There is a hell of a lot of difference between the two employees. These employees party hard, sleep at 4 o'clock, and they want to be precise, dot 6, they want to leave, but they have that focus to work for 8 hours or 6 hours without, don't disturb me, I'm doing this, I'll finish it and go. Yeah, and there are people who are 10 o'clock, they come at 10:30 and they're hanging around till 7:30 and trying to finish the job. So even the recruitment has also changed for us. We had to change our recruitment strategy to adapt to this change. And so within 10 years, if I see an organization changing, I think for a 100-year organization, it is a white elephant that needs to move. And this is what I experienced in Tata, having worked there 30 years ago. And now I am actually a vendor of Tata's. I see the change that is slower than what I would have expected in these large organizations. Yes, thinking is there, but bringing about who's going to walk that talk and who's going to push that white elephant is the bigger question. But if we have to have a significant change, it is this 85% of the economy that can actually be driven much quicker by actually getting this culture around. So I think that is where we feel that we have to be adaptive, and decision making is in our hands to make these changes almost immediate.
Absolutely agree with you. Yeah, Rakesh.
Archana,
Yes,
if I may.
we have a question. If you I may just ask this question. It's from Bhushan. What are some strategies for effectively working with C-suite executives who lack vision and have unrealistic expectations, which negatively impacts employees' well-being? Oh, sorry. I'm so sorry. It was supposed to be anonymous, but I didn't see that. Yeah.
Okay. My honest answer will be run as fast as you can.
So, sorry, can you repeat the question?
Yeah, sure. The question is really about strategies for effectively working with CEOs who do not see the relevance of these these programs, or who lack the vision and who have unrealistic expectations. So it's about that.
Archana, may I? Could I raise a question?
Yes, please.
Yeah, this is Hari Krishna again. Okay. And I'm going to connect a few points that Prabhash has made with what Rakesh had stated. I think not in the immediate past, but the previous intervention that he had. I think Prabhash and Jayashree have clearly articulated the need for creating a mental wellness culture in the organization. And this culture will ensure a foundation of trust that the employees will have to not only share issues, but let me give you a practical situation. And I think Rakesh touched this point. Let's have a situation where the CEO and the organization is driving a project very aggressively, and the project lead has hit a phase of depression, right? At that point of time, to entrust that project lead with that project and continue will be putting the whole organization at risk. But if you take that project lead away from that role, then you might probably aggravate her or his mental health, right? In such a situation, there could be, distrust, which could get, which could be a collateral damage in this particular issue, right? Because you need to protect the organization. You also want to care for the individual and want to create, a sense of security for that individual. But if there is a culture of wellness, mental wellness, then the individual realizes that even though he has gone into a loop situation, there is no, at least in the organizations that Prabhash and I have worked earlier, there have been nothing detrimental to the emolument package, but the person would be, on a sort of a loop line for the period that the individual needs to recoup, and the project will get delivered. Now, just imagine if there is no culture of wellness in that organization, the moment I get moved into a loop line, then I'm going to perceive that I'm sidelined, my career is finished, this is not the place where I need to work. So therefore, creating that culture is the bedrock, right? Which is on which you can create these more evolved programs in order to ensure that the organization is sustainable for the next 100 years. That's what I would like to submit.
Archana, you're on mute.
No, thank you, Hari Krishna, for sharing this. And I think very well said. I think the cultural shift has to be there, that safety for that employee has to be there, that, you know, he's not earmarked, but he's in just a recovery stage. But Prabhash, I would like to still take that question which this gentleman asked about, you know, how do you deal with, how do you convince your C-level to sign up for these programs, or, you know, how do they, people who are not aligned to these kind of services. I've myself spoken to some CEOs who have never heard these terms, you know, and not that they are bad organizations, but they have just, it's just how culturally we are, you know, as a society we are, that's just spoken about here.
So I think webinars like this one helps, right? One of the realities, and for example, people need to do a kind of recheck and re-understanding, re-evaluation of what the sustainable development goals are, right? Because one of the goals is on wellness, correct? In fact, the third goal is on wellness out of the 17 goals that are there. So one, it is in a way now a global mandate that you, as organizations, you will look at it from wellness as part of your sustainability goals, right? Number one. Number two, I think the question was a slightly bigger question. It also talked about lack of vision, etc. So for that, my answer will remain, run as fast as you can. But for everything else, when it comes to education, the idea is to bring in the science, bring in the necessary requirements. If it is part of the sustainable development goals, then it is likely that, like Rakesh said, you know, a large chunk of the organizations are actually SMEs, correct? And it is going to become part of the sourcing mandate for large corporations to not source from SMEs who do not adhere to sustainable development goals, right? So it is likely to be a bad industry practice to not adhere to the sustainable development goals. Slowly but surely, your stakeholders are going to be asking these questions. Right now, the focus is on carbon footprints, but all the 17 goals are going to come into focus fast enough. We are already seeing the issues around what is happening to the world minus the sustainable development goals. So what is likely to happen is your supply chain will get disrupted if you do not have these as part of your strategic narrative. There are chances that your buyers will stop buying from you, and hence it's a business risk that you are trying to mitigate through wellness packages also. So I think the understanding, the narrative that you and I also need to do, Archana, is to move it beyond this understanding that HR seems to have that, look, I'm trying to fix something which is broken. No, you're not trying to fix something which is broken. You are trying to implement something which is a necessary condition for you to do your business in the long term. Right? I'm not walking into your organization with health and wellness issues. I'm developing health and wellness issues within the organization. And this is going to be concerning for my buyers, the end consumer or the intermediaries, and it is going to put my business at risk. So why the CEO should adopt it? Because your business survival is at stake otherwise. That's the simple answer to that question. Bhushan or whoever else asked that question, I think one of the narrative that you need to adopt in your organization is to go beyond parallel processes. And I think HR is quite guilty of running parallel processes, right? We tend to, and in fact, I heard, I think Piyush Lenskart, no? In one of his public appearances, that he said that HRM thinks that I am responsible for employee and the CEO is responsible for P&L. But no, the CEO is responsible for employees, right? So CEO is not asking HR to do something as a parallel process for employees. CEO is saying that drive my agenda. My agenda is profitability. My agenda is sustainability. My agenda is growth. And whatever you do for people should tie into that agenda and then do. So when you talk about mental health or any other kind of wellness initiative, talk about its impact on the P&L. Talk about its impact on growth. Don't talk about because it's a nice thing to do, it's a soft thing to do, it's a good thing to do, right? Talk about, like I call myself a business owner's HR. I tell anyone that, look, unless I'm driving the CEO's agenda, I need not be there. Unless I'm driving the board's agenda, I need not be there. Now, why should board pick wellness as an agenda? Because it's the right thing to do to drive your business results. It's as simple as that. You want your business to grow, drive wellness. You want
But
people
Prabhash,
to drive
just
wellness.
one point here, Prabhash. So just see, why will the CEO agree that, okay, if you don't do this, then over a few years, your business is going to go down? Now there is no data that says this, right? Now today, why do I take somebody tells me I'm going to buy a new business process software. Now somebody will say, okay, what is the ROI? Why am I doing it? Okay, because of this, the process will improve, employee productivity, A, B, Z. I give all these examples and say, okay, this is the reason. Okay. Similarly, today, and then what we are also doing here, even in HR now, I'm asking these questions when we are recruiting. Why should I hire this person versus this person? What is it that in his JD that actually makes things different in terms of productivity outcome or that we are trying to do? So what we are trying to do, one, there is a parallel information that's available that even when organizations, like there were some 40 organizations that made a 4-day week and they found their productivity improved by 80%. It's a very significant number. And now they are thinking about the fact that we could go on a 4-day week. So at the end of the day, it is the data, one, which is the reflective data. Second, it is the fact that there is an ROI that I can give you in terms of your productivity, which that means I'm talking numbers to the CEO. I'm talking his P&L, his language. So I have to give that answer as well, and then say, this is what I'm going to do as a parallel item, focusing on your P&L, on the ROI, with the proof of data that's available.
100% with you, Rakesh.
I think there is data.
I tell my HR colleagues, now I'm not in HR, I run a business, but I tell my HR colleagues that unless you can see, people ask for the seat on the table, right? There's a whole debate around HR seat on the table, but I tell people that if you're going to sleepwalk to that seat, how does the seat matter, right?
Yes.
So it is extremely important for you to walk into that seat and talk the business's language, right? Like, for example, one of the common HR terminology is HR business partner, but I have never heard of finance business partner or a marketing business partner or a sales business partner, because everybody else seems to be at the heart of the business. Right? So it's very important for my HR colleagues to be at the heart of the business and speak the language that goes and sits in the P&L finally. And
Right.
each of these languages around wellness that we are talking about, it actually goes and sits in the P&L. There's enough research out there, right? It's just that you need to bring that data, that perspective, do your own primary research and bring it to the table.
Yeah, we have to prove it to the CEO or get outproven. So if you're outproven, then you need to run. If you can prove it, then you have a chance.
Archana wanted to come in and bring out, talk about a very small
we have
element
time.
here.
I just want to bring,
Yeah. Do we have time?
We have totally run out of time, so we can bring in for 2 minutes. We can probably continue the discussion, but then we need to wrap this up. So
Manish,
I'll just take 1 minute. I'll just take 1 minute. I see someone having a mental health issue or depression or constant negativity bias doesn't mean that the person would perform poorly at the workplace. May not. There's no direct correlation or there's no direct relation here. I know of cases who are at best of their craft and fighting serious depression issue. So it doesn't, what I'm trying to say is that we need to come out of those biases also. That someone having a mental health issue or any kind of a concern would immediately get into a groove where she becomes a bad performer. Actually, we need to be creating a very enabling kind of environment and then possibly try to extend professional help. And I've seen this firsthand, so I thought I must bring it out. Thank you.
Absolutely. So Manish, my first promotion and a 40% hike happened while I was popping pills. Okay. So I understand what you are saying from personal experience. And so one of the things that I want to bring in, but people don't talk about it, right? And that's a bigger problem, that I can tell 3 times in the same quarter that I have got flu, but it may take me a decade to acknowledge that I'm going through a phase of anxiety or depression. And I think the biggest enabling environment can be when you can have these conversations freely, and you can bring it on the table and be as comfortable, candid, and casual about it as you are with any other form of sickness. That's the starting point in my genuine belief. Because I could go walk across to my CEO and have a really candid conversation about what I was feeling or going through. I could be on that loop line for almost 4 months, and at the end of that 4 months, come back, get a promotion and a hike, and go back to my original job. It's not easy for your bosses to put you on the loop line unless the awareness is similar to if I was in coma for 4 months, right? What's the difference?
Yeah.
And I think I'll just like to sum it up in one line by saying that you can have a mental health condition like depression and have great mental health, or you can have no mental health condition and have very bad mental health. So that's where we need to change the whole culture.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We have completely run out of time, but if there are, Prabhash, if you would like to just summarize today's discussion or
More than summarize, I'd like to thank the audience. I mean,
yes, absolutely. We had a
half of the experts are sitting on
discussion.
that side of the table, So and that made this a richer conversation.
Yes, absolutely. I told you that most of the time we have a very interactive conversation. So it's very good to see that. So if you would like to give us two key.
I think we have a lot of HR colleagues in here as well. Whatever I could see the names that I can recognize, and a lot of young colleagues I see there as well. My submission to all of them is that when you try to integrate, see, the CEO doesn't write his own goals, right? The CEO goals get written by his colleagues at the beginning of the year. No, in any organization which does visioning in a robust fashion, the CEO collects goals bottom up, and then they go and sit on his goal sheet. So most of the times it's the HR function which puts this goal in, right? And the way they articulate this goal and the way they link this goal to the business objectives is how it will get accepted or rejected. So I think my submission to everyone here is that do a good job. Do a good job in not making it a nice to have, fancy sounding words. Everybody else is doing it, and hence I must also do it. Now, you know what, the neighbor has an employee assistance program, but I don't have. No, it's not the Onita TV. Right? It's something much more significantly important. And the CEO and the CFO, rightly so, will ask for ROI. No, they are going to ask for ROI. They deserve an ROI. So make it a ROI based process, and you will see magic happening. In my entire 12 years in HR and 8 plus years as a consulting organization, I've always believed that the person putting in the money deserves an ROI on the money. And our job is to make sure that we make it a ROI based process.
Absolutely. Jayashree, any 2 thoughts?
No, I think there is a lot of data to show that this is definitely, speaks to ROI. And I think it's just really important for visionary leaders to actually incorporate this into their organizational culture and, set that ball rolling.
Absolutely. And with that, I think we need to conclude this session, but I think we could have a part 2 to this, Prabhash, the way this conversation is going. So I would really like to thank everybody for coming in and sharing your perspectives. And what I really liked from Hari Krishna's vision was really about creating capable teams, which is, a really long-term vision. And that's where the CEO's KRAs need to be written long-term, not just for those 3 years. And that's how these programs, will find their mojo, and the sustainability will happen and integrate as a part of any other HR initiatives. So thank you everyone for joining us today, and we'll have the recording of this. We'll share it with you. You can be free to share it with other colleagues, and do write into us if you have any inquiries about what Samvedna has to offer in this space. I'm available. Can you just type in my chat, my email ID? So thank you everyone. Thank you, Prabhash. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Archana, for agreeing to partner with us on this holistic wellness journey.
Yes, absolutely. I think that's what I'm really looking forward to, is how we ingrain this into the organization and not keep it as a side thing. So absolutely lovely. Thanks everyone. Have a good evening, and we are all excited to see what's happening with the Chandrayaan mission. So I'm heading to that now. So thank you.
Yep. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.